And we know that young women are, listen, young men are incapable of making sound decisions when we're young. I can't imagine what it must be like because women are impulsive creatures. This doesn't make them bad, but this is why we have to protect women from themselves, because when you give women free will to be able to exploit themselves and make money sexually, they're taking the trains off the tracks. Casual Germ says Lawrence Fishburne disowned his daughter when she did one porn scene. Do you know who Lawrence Fishburne is?
No.
Okay, so he is an African-American actor who played the role of Morpheus in the very first and second, I think, and third Matrix. A-list Hollywood actor. I had no idea that his daughter did a porn scene. And Blizzanity on the YouTube side. Let me get your thoughts on this, Tallulah. He says this is exactly why high value men do not have a relationship with women that do that, or most fathers scolding their daughters for choosing that lifestyle. That is the worst fear. And I think I just saw let's see. One of the worst fears, if I can find it, is a man raising a promiscuous female. So what are your thoughts on a man, the worst fear? Well, I think it's probably the second worst fear. The worst fear is one of his kids not being his biologically. The second fear is raising a daughter who ends up becoming a hoe.
Yeah, no, 100%. And this is just something that I hear a lot talked amongst you guys a lot, and it's something that happened to me when I was young.
Okay.
I was a little bit odd, but I think it was just because my parents, it was just the environment I grew up in.
Okay.
Is I actually never, ever, ever moved out of my family home, ever. I was too scared to move out.
Okay.
Or like my friends were going off to uni, or they were, living with loads of people, and that is not what I wanted.
Right.
And when I hear about what was going on, and everyone was having these parties, and there were like random people staying in their apartments that they don't even remember because they'd had a drink and things like that. It's just frightening. And I really think that it is an important message, and it's not controlling for a father to try and keep his daughter at home for as long as possible, unless she has a boyfriend or a husband. But even when you have a boyfriend, you can still live at home.
Of course. No, back in the old days, the daughter used to live with the the family and the father until she was married. Right. That's why. And the reason they did that is because they know that young, beautiful, impressionable girls can get themselves in all kinds of trouble. This is the worst of the worst here.
Yeah, no, this is it. And I was the same. I stayed at home, and I've only ever lived at home because I haven't ever been married.
Right. Okay, good.
Like, I might have a partner, but I'm not living with him. But I still, obviously, what's with my parents' situation.
Of course, of course.
Unfortunately, they passed away, but right. I did live at home until that point. And I'm not afraid to say that. Like, I used to be in my 20s, I used to be really embarrassed, and I used to say, like, oh, I am moving out, and I am going to, but I was actually really terrified to move out, and I really liked just being at home.
Yes.
And that was fine for me. Unless you have a partner, a long-term partner, and you feel comfortable moving out, then do it. If you don't feel comfortable to move out yet, don't. That's fine. You can still have a really good relationship. But even better, actually, when you're living at home. And I think it gave like my ex-boyfriends, it gave them like peace of mind as well, because they'd always know where
you were. That's right.
And thinking back, I really was so embarrassed. I really was. I even had guys say to me, like, don't you think you should be like independent? And I was like, oh yeah, I will be. But like, I just wasn't interested. I just was quite happy doing my thing, like outside of the home in the day, and then coming home and being safe. I knew I was safe, I was warm, and it was great. So
that makes a lot. Listen, Tallulah, that makes a lot of sense. If and so many women think like you thought. Oh, I don't want to live at home with my parents because if I do, I'll be a loser. This goes again to what Rollo Tomasi calls blank slate equalism. Men and women are not the same. A man who lives at home with his parents in his 20s, that's a
Yeah.
fucking loser. A woman who
Yeah.
lives with her parents at home in her 20s, that's potentially a treasure. Because when a woman lives at home with her parents, she's much less likely to ride the carousel, because at that point, now she has to be accountable to her parents. Well, who did you have over last night, or where did you stay last night? Not to say that women who live at home with their parents don't get up to, some shenanigans, but it's far less likely because they have someone to answer to. Whereas if a woman lives alone, they can do whatever with whoever, whenever, however they want. This is why I say one of the most undercover red flags for women on the dating market is if they live alone. If you find a woman who lives with her parents, listen, put that in the check box. Put that in the good check box. Women who live alone are almost always hoes. That's just all there is to it. We'll go ahead and finish this out of here shortly.
Of course, on its face, a person's sexuality is extremely valuable, but much less so when it's made available to the entire world for $5 to $10 a month.
There you go. That's what I wanted to end this thing on. What she just said there, Tallulah.
$10 a month.
Yeah, listen. I'll play it again. Well, I think OnlyFans subscriptions are $5 to $10 per month. I've never even been on this site, but yeah, exactly. For $5 to $10 per month. Obviously, the more OnlyFans subscribers you get, the more money you make. But what she just said there. I'm going to play this again. Listen to what she says. This is profound.
Own choice as well. Of course, on its face, a person's sexuality is extremely valuable, but much less so when it's made available to the entire world for $5 to $10.
Okay. She says a person's sexuality is extremely valuable, much less so if it's been made available to everybody. If we look at the big picture, and this is what girls need to understand when they talk about the fact that, well, it shouldn't matter what a woman's body count is. Consider this. The more something is available, or the more something has been used, the less valuable it is. You buy a brand new car right off the lot, you're going to pay a lot more for it than if it's got 50 or 60,000 miles on it. That's just how it is. However, a girl who has scantily clad pictures on the internet and OnlyFans and this and that and the third, if it's just OnlyFans, it's worth a lot more so long as the data is secure. But if there's a breach of data security and all of a sudden all of your OnlyFans pictures are spread out throughout the world, guess what happens to the value? It goes way down. In the exact same vein, a woman's sexuality, her potential virginity, that is worth a lot. The less men she has sex with, the more valuable she is. Unless, of course, she's given it to dozens or even hundreds of men. What happens to that value? It goes down. So the next time a woman says, well, it shouldn't matter what a woman's body count is, I should be able to get the same kind of man. Well, let me ask you something. Would you pay for a photo that is readily available for free? Well, of course not. Because you know that photo is not worth anything. If there's only one place you can get those photos or videos, yeah, you might be willing to pay for it because no one else has it. But if everybody has it, ain't nobody trying to pay for that. So when these girls out here talking about, well, I've slept with 200 guys and got a bunch of tattoos and piercings, I should be able to get the same kind of guy. Sweetheart, you've already dispersed your body to other people, and the more you disperse it, the less value it has.